All right, so last week you were to memorize pati, pati. Pati, patayo, pati, pati, pating, patayo, pati, patina, patihi, patisa, patino, patinang, patisma, patihi, patisa, patino, patinang, patisming, patisu, pati, patayo, pati. So this week your homework will be Seti.
It is the one that we studying last. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Week before was Patti.
Oh, you've done all three so far.
Yeah.
Thank you. And today, this week, Garu.
Garu. Okay.
Garu, 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 Garu. All right. So last week we went through Sandhi. There's not a lot to say about it. As I said, most of it is just learning the theory. And then seeing it in action. Sorry, most of it is just understanding that the theory exists. There's not much to it. What I mean to say is there's no real rules. You don't want to be too stuck on the idea that certain words, certain letter combinations always become something, as it's quite irregular. What you want is a general idea of how it works, sorts of things that can happen, and then putting it into practice. Keep in mind this table. I went over that already. We will go over it again. Do keep that table with you.
Bente, are there any tips and tricks on how to know if a word, or if there's sandhi and it's two words, right? But how to know if a word is sandhi or if it's an actual word? Because I have difficulty with that.
Yeah, I don't have any real tips. You have to start to learn. I mean, that's the theory helps you get a sense of what's possible. And then you have to start to learn to see it. So if we go to some of the texts, that's not it, but here. One thing that helps is being able to recognize vocabulary. So for this one, it helps that you know that kala is a word. It also helps that you recognize that this is an idiom in Pali. It's a fairly common idiom. So this is sandhi. What's actually happening here is you've got kalang and akangsu. But the nigihita becomes an M, and you stick it together.
What does that mean? What is the word?
This is from the root gar, which is in regards to doing or making. Kala means time. Aprabhage means, apara means another. Bhaga means portion. Aprabhage means after another certain amount of time. A certain amount of time after that. So after what they were just talking about. sometime after that, and this is the subject of the sentence. Do you know what this means?
I have the translation printed out, so I'm cheating, but it means mother and father.
Mother and father?
Yeah, mata pitu is father, but in Sanskrit it would be pitar. Pitar would be the word, and in Pali it just becomes pitu, but this is why it's pitaro. If you know Sanskrit, you know that the formal form is pitar and matar, like mother and father. And pitaro is the plural. So this isn't fathers, this is mother and father plural, but only the one at the end is pluralized. So you pluralize the thing at the end, and what it means is mother and father as a plural thing. This is the plural form of pitar, pitu. So can you figure out what this means? Kara has a sense, in English we would say completed. So they completed their time. That starts to make a little more sense in English.
They died.
They died.
So the mata, what is it? Mata pitaro. It's not like mothers and fathers. It's mother and father, but it's one thing, so it becomes plural.
That's right. We're going to learn about compounds eventually.
Thanks.
So if you look through this, for example, the sandhi isn't a big deal. It may seem scary, but where is the sandhi in here? There's not that much. You're not going to have to look for it everywhere. Iti is a pernicious one. Iti is always smudged on the end. And words like iti, like api, is a very common one. Let's see if we can find an api in here somewhere. Here. So this word, you look at this, you say, what the heck does that mean? Is this some weird declension? No. This is api stuck on the end of Anathapindika. And this is api stuck on the end of Visakha. And in this case, api means different things, but pi and pi together mean both this one and this one. So these little words often do that. Api, ko, iti, ja and wa will do it. Ja is the word for and wa is the word for or. We'll be learning about those today maybe. Ewa is another one here. Look at this one. This is actually just kateti and ewa. Ewa is an emphatic, so it's like indeed. But it becomes one word, kateti-ewa. It's not everywhere. Here's another one. He. This is where you're going to see them all the time, is with these little words on the end. He is another emphatic, and this is just ahang, which means I. Indeed, I. This is the Buddha talking to himself.
Isn't it 7-1?
No.
Mm.
7-1, there's an amhi form, but not with the nya.
Okay.
Ahanhi. Not sure why the difference, but it doesn't matter. This is totally different. This is ahang plus the emphatic particle he. Or but. He could also mean but, I think. That's different meanings. Or moreover in this case, I think. No, here it might mean but. This sati, yeah, no, this is not but. This is moreover kind of he. Or furthermore, kind of thing. We'll see when we get into that translation. So Abhyaya indeclinables are not just words. So they're not just indeclinables, they're also prefixes and suffixes. So they're kind of like the stuff that doesn't fit in with the declensions. And they're not just words. These are the only ones that are words. Upasaga and Pachaya, the thing is they don't change. Like look at the suffixes. We go down to suffixes because everything changes at the end, right? End is what we decline. But here you've got endings that aren't following any paradigm. Not exactly. In fact, some of them I would argue do. Like this one really is just an ending for the 5. It's a 5-1 ending. That's really what it is, right? Or 7-1. No. And some of them are actually just endings for specific declensions. But like this one is just an ending that has a specific meaning. These ones here especially, they're endings that have specific meanings, and they don't have anything to do with first person, second person, or so on. They just don't have anything to do with that. So they're suffixes that don't relate to declensions. They don't have anything to do with declensions. They're like extra suffixes that have specific meanings. Then we've got all the prefixes. The prefixes are really useful to learn. You're supposed to memorize these. We'll see if we ever get around to memorizing them. I would imagine we might not. But keeping them in mind is useful because you'll come across lots of verbs and nouns that use these, and it gives you a deeper idea of what they mean. It's not always literal. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it just gives you a sense of how adding the suffix changes a word. Like if you look at the word panya. Panya means wisdom. But nya, the word nya, just this, means knowledge. And you add an extra nya in there. You add the pa prefix to nya, and you get thorough knowledge. Pati has various meanings. Pari all around, so parinibbana. So you have nibbana, then you have parinibbana, which is like a complete, comprehensive nibbana kind of thing. You have wheat, where you have pasana, and then you have vipassana, or vipassati. Special, clear vision would probably be the best. Sang has 3 different meanings. Sang is used quite a lot. Sangyutta. Sang is a very common one. Su and du are in fact, all of these are common enough that they're important to learn. I suppose some of them are not that, like this is not that common, but you will see it.
Why are there 2 knees? Knee and knee 2.
They just have different meanings.
How do you know which one is which?
Well, you see which one fits. It's about getting a sense of the language. So it goes both ways. It goes knowing what they prefixes mean going into it, and then learning more about how the prefixes are used coming out of it after you look at the word and you see it in context. So the study that you do of the texts will inform your understanding of how these prefixes are used. The knowledge of the literal definitions of these will help you translate words as well. It isn't one way. It isn't a one-way thing. It's to go both ways.
I have another question.
It's often a puzzling out. Like you'll look at a word and you'll get a sense, okay, well, this prefix could mean this or it could mean this. And then you have some sense of the root word. Roots are very important in understanding meaning. And then you try to piece it together, and you'll see, like, often translators will have footnotes on these things. Like they'll say it seems like it might mean this, but there's disagreement. Here's some examples. These are given from the Thai, I think. Adi is big. Adi is like an augmenting prefix. Anu is the opposite. It's a lowering, a reductive prefix. Makes it smaller. It's like anuja. Ja is one who is born. Anu means after. Anu gacchati, to go after, behind someone. Follow after someone. Apa. Apa neti. Neti is to lead. Apa away. Apa neti, to lead away. Api close. I don't know why you'd ever say api kacha. I guess you might. Another question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask why does it what is the meaning of nipata here? Because there's the sutta nipata, but I don't think it means preposition of suttas. What does nipata mean?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'm gonna search it.
Yeah, I think nipata is like an interjection, maybe. And so the Sutta Nipata was because it's short verses. Or it's verses. Something to do with the length, maybe. So if you read through all these and at your own pace, you might find it useful to get a sense of how these prefixes are used. But I do recommend memorizing this if you're a person who memorizes things. Eventually you're going to want to memorize this. It's not a long list. Very useful. Nipata, also very useful, but unfortunately much longer. So you're supposed to memorize all of these for the Thai Pali courses, exams. But this is a lot to remember. So nipata, these are small words. They're not exactly prepositions. They're just words that fit in the sentence but aren't conjugated. And they're used in all sorts of ways. These are the ways that they're used. Address means addressing someone. So these are words that you use to call people. These are only used with the alapana in this vocative sense. Yaghe is what when we do in Thailand, there's a very formal food offering on the Buddhist holiday, where the one monk, the vice abbot, used to say, "Yakhe bhante." Yakhe, Thai, they harden the g. Yaghe bhante sangko patijanato ko pasong tang puang chong fang kapa chao. It's a very polite way of addressing the sangha. Bhante, you know this one. But I'll point out again, you shouldn't ever call someone Bhante in the third person. It just doesn't make any sense. I guess it's been adapted, so it's not worth being nitpicking about it, but it does sound a little bit weird to say, oh, I was with Bhante so-and-so. I heard Bhante so-and-so say this. Bhante is something you call someone. Same with Badante. Bhante is just an easier way of saying Badante. If you want to talk to someone in the third person, it would be Badanta. And that's very proper. There should be a Banta, but there isn't, I don't think. So Badanta. Badante is the vocative, Badanta. And Bante is just a short form. So this is actually not quite a indeclinable. It's kind of declined. from Badanta. Bane, you notice they all end in A, and so they're kind of just words that have formed over time in the vocative. So they are kind of a declined form of something. Bane, these are words you use to call people. Ambho Purisa. You'll see that a lot in the suttas and the Vinaya when you talk to someone. Ambo is polite. It's not respectful by any means. It's just among equals. Hey, you, kind of thing. Well, a little bit more polite than that. Excuse me, kind of. Auso is a bit more friendly, I think. It's polite, but it's a bit more. Well, it's polite and kind of among friends, I think. Auso is really usually translated as friend. I don't know if it doesn't actually mean friend, to tell you the truth. It means one who has age, so one who is a bit someone who is elderly, not elderly, but an adult. So it's polite. But it is also what a senior monk uses to address a junior monk. So it isn't actually a putting someone above you. It was used to talk about someone who is below you, technically. So even today, we have to call each other Awuso and Bante as monks. If you're senior, you have to call the younger monks Awuso. It's not that common to use it. Because we're also just allowed to call them by the name, and that's, I think, much more common. Just call them by their name if you're senior. But if you're junior, you can't just call them by your name. You have to say Bante Yuttadhammo or something. Re and Are, these are for people you don't like. He is very impolite. And J, you really should never use these. Not that you're ever going to speak Pali anyway, but only a person who saw people as below them, I think, would use these. It's very impolite. It's rude. And so lords would use it for their slaves. Slaves is more than servants. I mean, to put it bluntly, they were usually indentured servants, I think, slaves. And so it's not a very nice word. But you do see it. Hey, you'll see from time to time in some of the stories. And this is if you really don't like someone, mainly. Bo isn't in here. Where's Bo? Why don't we have Bo? Bo is another one. I wonder if we're just missing it. And all these time ones, I won't go through all of these one by one. Is this wrong? Katung. And this should be sucking. Got some errors here. If you find any errors, you can let me know. I try to change them. Ayating, common. A lot of these are common, so you need to learn them. Atta, very common. Atta often starts sentences. Udang, some of these are not so common, some of them are. Talking about place, this is a very common one. Common. Bahi is useful to remember that it's something external. Heta, below, underneath. Ado, below. These ones are useful. Remember we learned kinchi. Kinchi is something, right? You use the KYT system with a ka plus chi. Means not what, but something. So kinchi. Kinchi is some or something also. Yawa and Taba, this is the YT system. So how much you do this, that much you will get the reward, kind of thing. You will say like that. Kiwa is the K form. So this is KYT right here. But it becomes Kiwa. There's lots like that. This isn't all of them. Some of them are down here. Yata is another one. Yata, tata. just as such and such, and then tata. So these go together. Yata and tata. Sometimes yata and ewang instead of tata, so you have to look out for that. It's still a relative correlative, but you've got yata and then ewang because they actually. Viya and iwa are used for similes, and iwa sometimes becomes wa. So look out for this. If you look at the Chakupala, we have an example of this. It's not that common, and it can throw you for a loop if you don't catch it. Here, chakang wa wahato, chakang wa wahato padang. So this wa here is a simile. It's like suffering follows that person. Chakang wa, just like the wheel follows the foot of the ox that pulls it.
Is Wahato ox?
Wahato is the puller of a burden, I think. Oh wait, what does wahato mean?
Bears or carries, does one's work.
Yeah, the thing that's carrying, the thing that's pulling. Wahato. It's just a way of talking about a beast of burden. The foot of the thing of the wahata, the thing pulling it, or what is the word? I guess it's waha. I guess, right? Oh, we got it. We got the meaning at the very end, actually. The puller. Anyway. Ewang, well, ewang means thus, but it, could also be by those means. Tata, katang, how. Important word. Katang is a question meaning how. So you've got king meaning what, katang meaning how, kiwa meaning how much. Important to know the difference between these words.
Ante, can you scroll up a bit, please? So, yata and tata, they're used in this, they're indeclinable, right? So it doesn't matter, like, if, like, singular, plural, or, like, what, declension
No,
the word
they
is referring
don't have
to,
any
but then,
relationship. They don't have any relationship with things that are declined.
okay.
They mean something specific. All of these words mean something specific that has no relationship, no connection with something that might be declined. How could you decline a word that means just as? Just as is? No. You can't pluralize it. You can't past or present or future tense it. It means something very specific. I mean, for these ones, like how much, you might think, well, or that much, right? Well, you'd think that might be used as an adjective, but it's not really. Tawa means to that extent, kind of thing. I mean, most of these are something similar to that extent. The etawata to that extent, or to this extent, sorry. Okay, negation, not, of course, very important. Not and ma, these go generally with verbs. Not goes with all the verbs except for the imperative. Imperative is when you're telling someone to do something or to not do something. So na karoti means he doesn't do, or didn't do, or won't do. It could be past, could be future. It's a present tense verb. So literally, he, she, or it doesn't do. But ma karos karohi means don't do, singular, and plural ma karota. Don't do it. Don't act. You wouldn't say na if it's an imperative. Na is for all other types of verbs to negate them, but ma is for imperatives. So remember that. And these are kind of, they're not always used as negations, but they can be, where they're say however kind of thing. Along is kind of a negative in the sense. Along means enough in the same as English. When someone said too much, you say enough. It literally does mean enough, and it's used in that sense. But in the same way in English, we say enough to negate someone, to stop them. Vina is the same as, where's our sudding? Do we have? Sudding must be somewhere. Anyway, vina and sudding are used in the same way. So they're used with the instrumental. You can go with someone, and you can go without something or someone. If you go without someone, you say purisena vina, without the man. If it's with the man, you'd say purisena saddhing. You don't have to use these words. Well, you don't have to use sudding. Without suddhing, it still means, so you can say purisena saddhing. And that means with the man. And then if you say purisena vina, it means without the man. They're used after the instrumental. I don't know whether they can be used anywhere else, but that's where you'll mostly see them. Kira, we've seen before. Kalu, Sudang, not so common. Sudang a little bit, but Kalu, I don't know if I've ever seen it. J is useful. J comes usually after the first word, so you'll say punyanche. Punyanche, so this is punya. Hard to read in this form, but this is punyang. Punyangche, if, and then it's going to say if a person should do punya. Punya meaning goodness. If someone should perform goodness, then the next part is, then they should do it again and again. Meaning, if someone does goodness, they shouldn't stop at doing it once. They should do it again and again. So punyan che. The che comes, you wouldn't put che first. You can't really put che here, like say che punyang, but you can say sat che punyang, which we have down below, but not che. Che, I guess, is kind of an inclinative, kind of a contraction of sat che maybe, but it only ever comes after anyway. Yadi is if, but well, it's the same thing, really. Yadi sangha sapatakalang sangho uposatang kareya. If the sangha is amenable, they should do the uposata. Atta, I don't know if it has a dot under that. I don't know what atta would mean. It's an interesting word. Devanama, well, there you have the meaning of that. You will see it sometimes. I think this is not both, either or. Yanuna, not so common, but there are places where you'll see it. It doesn't really mean however in the way that it looks here. It's kind of like in any case. Like however it may be. All right, here's the question. So king what, katang how, kachi, is it? So you might put kachi at the beginning and say kachi, and then you say one thing, or kachi another. Kachi one thing or another thing. Is it the case that, and so on. Nu comes. Nu is like J, it comes after the first word. Like you might say ati nu. Ati means is it. Ati nu. Well, ati means it is. And then you turn it into a question by saying ati nu, like is it? Is it indeed the case that? Nanu, not so common. Udahu, not so common. Sayatidang is Sayatidang is interesting. It's Sayatidang is used like this. You would say, "How is that?" It's like this. So you put Sayatidang here, Sayatidang, and then you explain. I don't think you ever use it. I don't think it quite means this literally, but that's how you use it. It's not. You would never use this as a question, I don't think. I don't know. Ama is how you say yes, except you very rarely say yes. Maybe that's not true. No, that's not true. It's not. Well, anyway, this is how you say yes. No. No is what you don't say. No is not very common. Manta, not very common. Handa, sometimes. The rest, not so much.
Is there a neither, like neither this nor that? I didn't
Yes.
find that.
Yeah. And in fact, I was going to talk about it, but then I couldn't remember it, but you just made me remember it. Not, it's newa and then na. So you'd say newa x na y.
That might be useful to add to the textbook, right?
Yeah. Except it's not an indeclinable. It's not. It's two words. It's not and ewa. But that's how you say it. Newa na. Newa something na something. Like newa sanya na sanya. Neither
If there's
perception nor non-perception.
if there's many, like neither this nor that nor this other thing, is it like many nas or many newas?
Yeah, I think so. No, just one ewa.
Okay.
In fact, there's Patisanka yonisoni pindapatang patisewami newa dawaya na madaya na mandanaya na vipusanaya. So there's your example.
What does that mean?
We use alms food not for this, nor that, nor that, nor that. You can look up the reflections on eating. So cha and wa I mentioned, and I don't know if I've told you this yet, but cha and wa are not used the way we use them in English. It's not a cha b. It's a cha b cha. So like dhammo cha, vinayo cha. Cha and wa are both used like this. And again, if there's more than, you don't necessarily need this one. So you will sometimes see it like this. You will never see it like this. I can't think of an instance where you would ever see it like we put it in English. That just doesn't make any sense. But you will sometimes see it like this, I think. And moreover, you might see three things, like A, B, C, cha. Or sometimes, oh, there's weird things. I think you can sometimes get A, B, J, C. And it's often because of its poetry or whatever. But the technical way to do it is this. That's how it should be used. Idang wa urang wa. Here or another place or in the next life. Api, we just saw that it can also be used like cha. Api can use basically just like cha, but it kind of has a different sense, like both. Cha just means A and B, but api, like I can say dhammopi, vinayopi, but it kind of has a different sense of both. It's not a big deal. He can mean but. Doesn't have to mean but. It can also just be emphatic, I think. Tu, not so common. Apicha, sometimes. Atawa once in a while. This or even this. Atawa bud. So you could say buddho atta wa tassa savaka. Tassa savako. The Buddha or even his savaka. His savaka means his follower. So the Buddha might do something. It's talking about, that verse is talking about a gift to the Buddha. Natti chitte pasannhammi apakana matakina tathagateva sambuddhe atawa tasasavaka. There's no such thing as a small gift given out of faith with a pure heart to a fully enlightened Buddha or even one of his disciples. Enlightened disciples, I suppose. Nu, su, not so common. Way, a little bit. Wo is actually not an enclitic because this is a form of the verb, the tumha. What the heck is this doing in here? It's a plural form. Ko is very common everywhere. Ko is just emphatic. Ko api ewa. Where's ewa? We already have ewa in the negatives, I think. But ewa isn't just a negative. It's also it's also just emphatic, and you can sometimes see it with wa, which confuses you because we had wa for a simile, right? But wa usually just means ewa. You'll see that a lot. It's ewa, but it looks like wa. These ones will all get you in trouble because they'll confuse you with their sandhi. You'll forget what they mean. You'll not be sure what the meaning is being added, and usually the meaning is not that important, not that significant. It's often just emphatic. Wata, sometimes, hawe, not really very common. These ones are some of these ones are used a lot, or maybe not. No, maybe not with this one. Micha, that means wrong. Biyo is fairly common. Here's sadding with, that's the opposite of vina. Saha, very common. So it doesn't have to be sadding, it can be saha. So you can say purisena saha. And saha is also used like a prefix. So you say saha jati, with birth. Or born together. Not with birth. Born together with someone is a sahajati. Or sahajata maybe. Sayang, yeah, you should learn that. Sayang means referring to the self, oneself. Okay, and then suffixes, special suffixes. I think just read through these lists on your own time. Remember them. This one is very common, the to suffix. Sabbato. So you take these words like sabba means all. You add to on the end, you get from all. Anyato, from another. So it's really just an ablative suffix, the 5-1 suffix. Sabbata, not, well, some of these are common. Sabbata, in all. Sabbata is like in all places. Anyatra, in or at another. Not necessarily in, it can mean at or near. Yatra, yata. The in doesn't mean in some, it means in what. In what, but not a question. Like in which place. Like, or in some place. No, not in some place. This would be used in relative color of yatra, tatra. Tatra is fairly common. Also tata. Eta, in this place or at this place, here basically. Ida and eta, these are very common, used to mean here. So ida, here or in this. Ida is often explained by the commentaries when the Buddha uses it to mean in this sasana, in this religion. The Buddha often, he'll say, here monks, a monk does this or that. And that means in this place. So da is referring to time, also very important to learn. These are all very important. There's just too many of them to really go over, and you're just going to have to learn about them. This is more vocabulary than anything. Just learn these words and remember them. Idani means now. Very common. This is a good one to learn. But yada and tada. It's important to learn the difference between like yada and yatha. Or yattha, sorry. Or yatha is the other one. But yattha is in some place, or in a certain place. Yada means at which time. So tada, at that time. Tata, at that place. Kada, question. But idani, very common, very important. Ajja today, Saju also today. Okay, and this one, this set is much more important than this little translation from the Thai gives it credit for. Especially this one and this one. This one should look very familiar to you already. We've seen it so many times. This is the gerund, having done. So the root here is gar, and it becomes gat. And you'll see lots of them, like gatwa means having gone, and so on. Yatwa, having bathed. Watwa, having spoken. Bhutwa, having been. So many of these. You'll see these everywhere. It's how they say things in Pali. This one less common. The other three are not common at all. Cut away in order to do, sure. You don't hardly ever see it. Katuna, I don't know. Katwana is just another way of saying katwa. You'll usually only see that in poetry, where it's trying to fit a rhythm, but this is the common one, and this one is the second most common one. And this one is not very common, but you will see it, and it has a specific meaning. It's the infinitive. So we often will say things like karoti. What does karoti mean? Karoti means to do. It doesn't mean to do. Karoti means he does. He, she, or it does. Or let's say she does. Well, if you want to say to do, it's gatung. That's the infinitive form. When do you use the infinitive? You use it most often with verbs relating to ability. Sorry, sakoti. Sakoti means she is able. So you might say sakoti ka gatung. she is able to do. That's where you'll see katung. You'll see the tung suffix. So let's be clear here that these are the suffixes. So the tung suffix, anytime you see a verb ending with tung, it's the infinitive, and you got to look for a verb like sakoti, meaning she, here, it is able. Any questions?
Yes, Bante, just to go back a little bit, back to number 3, suffixes to do with time. Am I seeing the KYT system there? Yada, tada, and kada?
Yes.
Okay.
So yada and tada would be used together. Yada, at which time you do X, at that time Y will happen. Nothing like that, but that's the sort of way you'd use it. At whatever time there is X, there will be Y. Yada X, tada Y. You'll see some sentences like that. And kada would be if you're asking a question. What time is it? Or if you want to know when someone is coming, when someone is going, that sort of thing. When is something happening? Kada X, when is X happening? All right. So
Bante, I have a quick question about the Nipata Bahida. It says bottom in the textbook. In the DPR, it says outside or outer. So I was wondering what it means in Ajita Bahida. Satipatthana, Ajita Bahida. Is Bahida the outer body or is it the outside?
Bahida shouldn't mean bottom. I think that's a mistake. I don't know what means bottom. That's just someone copying this down wrong, I think.
It makes sense. If it's outside, does Ajata Bahida mean the outer body or the people?
Bahida means external in that case. Ajatang literally means personal, one's own. But there Ajata means internal. Bahida means external.
So it's the sensations not on the body but somewhere else. Ajata Bahida wa kayonupasi viharati.
Yeah, that's because in the Satipatthana Sutta you can look at the body of a dead person, and that's Kaya Nupassana. It's not Vipassana, it's Samatha. But you can look at the body of another person, and that can help you gain tranquility. It can also, of course, help with insight. It helps you give up your attachment to the body.
Thank you.
But no, you don't sense things in other people. You don't experience the physical sensations of others.
Got it. Thanks.
It's a bit awkward to try and take that part of the sutta too literally, because he repeats that after every section, right? But some sections, I think you could argue that it doesn't really apply. It's just a repetition to say, in this way, you're doing one of these things. Maybe not all of them, but you're doing one of them. It's either internally or internally and externally. It doesn't mean that every section should be done externally, internally, and both internally and externally. But internally and externally is like comparing, saying, as they are, so am I, kind of. For Vipassana, I would argue it's pretty much just internally. But there is some sense that the senses are both internal and external. The external is knowing the light touching the eye, and the internal is knowing the eye that is being touched by the light.
Thank you.
Okay, So how are we doing? Where did we get to last week? This one, we haven't done this one yet. Oh wait, have we finished this? We haven't finished this.
I have tried translating, not translating, but writing down the declensions and attempting to translate the first paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
So I
this
think
we got here, I think, right? Having caused people to clean the lower part of that tree.
Yeah.
So then we go on to here, kara pitwa. Kara pitwa, this is the root kar, which is in regards to doing. And we've added again na pitwa, right? Just like we did here. And that has again strengthened this. This kind of thing, we haven't learned about verbs yet, but well, we've just learned about the twa, right? So we have to get into it. The root here is kar, short a. But again, we've added nape. And so you'll have a problem when you try to look up a root gar. I mean, it's pretty easy because gar is so common, you just recognize it right away. But some places you won't recognize it. And so you have to remember that, yes, this is actually from a short a root. But nape has has strengthened it. So this caused some people to do something, to make something. Make a pakara parikepa, which is what, a fence or something? Fence all around. Okirapetwa caused some people to spread sand, and a banner, and a pataka, what a pataka is. So here's an example of two things that are singular. So it doesn't have to be plural just because there's two things. I think this is two things, but it doesn't. Two things can be singular. Usapetwa caused some people to erect, to raise up. U, I think, is the prefix, right? Let's go back here. Look up our prefixes. U, up, right? U, and I don't know what. I think usa is just u, like the prefix means everything. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's just took up something, upped something, caused some people to up something.
I didn't know that it's some people and not like having himself raised.
Right, so I didn't mention that today, but I mentioned that before. Nape, the suffix here that we're going to have to learn about later. The nape suffix, because this isn't just a twa ending, it's a nape twa. Well, or think of it like this, because we learn it as nape, but don't be confused by the na. The na is just to strengthen this. You can't strengthen this because it's got a conjunct consonant afterward, so it doesn't strengthen. But this is nape. Nape is the causative suffix. It goes after the root, before the declension, before the final suffix. And it's causative. So he isn't doing it himself, he's causing. Nape, napia, and ne, even just ne. So you'll sometimes see this, usetwa, not in this case, but you might. And even the a gives it away, because verbs just don't have this a here. Same like eti, you'll see eti. Useti, he, she, or it causes someone to do something. To raise, in this case, causes someone to raise. And here, it's no longer causative, right? Itwa. Karitwa. Not sure why this is passive though. Itwa. I guess it isn't. I'm not sure. Karitwa. I guess it's because of lankara. I'm not sure. But this means decorated the tree. Ah, right, that's it. Because he made it so that the tree was done enough. I think. So the tree was done. That's why this is passive. That's my guess anyway. He made the tree enough. He caused the tree to be enough. which does mean, which literally means, or no, it's a colloquialism for decorated the tree.
Bente, quick question.
Yeah.
The DPR says Allah is claw of a crab.
No, don't. You're separating it wrongly. Alankara means decorate or decoration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alankara actually is a noun that means decoration, but alankaroti means alang means enough. Kara in regards to doing or making something enough. It's a polite, probably the way the aristocracy would say, I decorated it. It's probably a very high sort of word. It's a euphemism almost. So this isn't necessarily passive, because the itwa isn't always passive. Here it's definitely not passive. So we're going to say that this just isn't passive, because here he did Anjali. Anjali is putting your hands up to your chest in supplication. So having brought his hands to his chest in Anjali, and here we have the quote markers for us. We're cheating, but we would normally have to look at the iti here and break it apart. And here he probably thought to himself. So you have to add the verb in here. And what did he think to himself? Satche, this is something we learned today, right? Satche means if. Remember how I said J would go here, but Satche can go at the beginning? That's how this works. If X, then Y. There's no then here. There could be, but it doesn't have to. Putang wa titarang wa. Any idea what this means? Remember we got wa, right? A wa, B wa.
A son or a daughter.
Mm-hmm. And this is the optative form of the verb. We'll learn verbs later. You learn this. But aya, just giving you a preview. This aya suffix goes with satche. Goes with words like satche. There's other uses for it. But when you say satche, you really have to use labeya. Because if I should, and it's the same way we use should in English. It's not. It should can be a need, right? I should do this. I really should do this. But it can also mean if I should. We don't really say that in modern English, but it's in formal English. You still can say it. If I should see you again, that kind of. If I should see you again, if I should see him, I will let him know. So you'll have optative here, and then you'll have future here. If I should gain a son or a daughter, and here's the is. Is is future. You'll learn that later. See, everything's a preview, and by the time we actually learn it, it's already familiar to you. And this is first person, so it's a 3-1 form. I will do this for this. This is 2-1. Subject, object of the sentence, right? So we don't have a subject. The subject here is ahang. But we know that because this is an ahang form. This is a 3-1 form. So it's first person. So you don't need ahang. But that's the subject. I will do this. Usually right before the verb anyway, so easy. We got an ang, so we know it's probably following purisa. Maha is a prefix meaning great. Sakara means offering, paying respect, offering, I guess. Tumha is the you, Y-O-U word, right? Akang is the 4-2 ending, I think, to you, but it's plural. And I think I mentioned this, that you use plural when you're talking to someone you respect. So tumhakang is very appropriate here. He's looking up at the tree. He's revering the tree. I mean, it's not appropriate. It's just a tree, but well, it's what you would use if you worship trees, which this guy does. It's what someone would normally use for the Buddha, if, like a layperson, someone who wanted to really put the Buddha up high. Monks don't usually, well, no, sometimes might use plural, but still use it for the Buddha. Anyway, so I will do a great offering, will make a great offering to you, plural. Having made a patthana means a wish or a determination kind of thing. Pakami, pa here means out, I think. And here the root kam is in regards to going. So he went out. Kami is a past form of kam. Pakamati. He goes out. Pakami, he went out. Any other questions about this? I think we'll leave it there. Translate more, but you're welcome to work ahead. And if you have questions about what you're working on, you're welcome to ask next week.
I have one question about this first paragraph. I think you explained it before, but I still am confused. So it says, So ekadivasang natidhang nahatva natva, and I don't know what agachanto antaramagge. What does that mean?
So we went over this probably too quickly. Agachanto is a present participle. So it's kind of filling the same purpose as one of these, but these are like having done. This is saying while he was coming back. This is like the ing. While he was coming, while coming. And it has nothing to do with this word. This word is place. So you can just pull it out, but here in English we probably say while coming, having seen da 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 antaramage. This is where he saw, where the seeing occurred. The seeing occurred while he was coming, and the seeing occurred along the path. Antara means in between, magge path. And this is a 7-1 form.
Can you explain what a present participle is? I'm not really familiar with this word,
Ing.
with what it means in English.
Ing. In English, ing. I-N-G. Coming.
Like it's something you are doing, or like I am coming, like I am going.
Doing, building, baking, speaking.
So something you're doing in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But here it doesn't mean that, does it?
Yeah.
So it was while but it's while he was coming, like he's already gone.
Yeah, but it doesn't have any reference to time. Time is talked about elsewhere in the sentence. This just refers to the fact that something happened while he was coming, while the coming was going on.
Okay.
That's how you use
Thanks.
the present participle.
Thank
It's
you.
a participle, so it's actually an adjective. So literally, this is the person, puriso, the agachanto puriso. So you would say something like this: the coming man, more understandably, the man coming saw. Which man? The man coming. So it's a way of specifying something. It's literally an adjective. But here it's trying to specify that that's the time, or the time, I guess, when it was seen, the time of coming. I mean, it's how we'd say in English, I went and I did this, and when I was coming back, I saw a tree. Say it even in English, we don't specify time. We say coming back. We use it exactly the same way. I, coming back, saw a tree.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
It's not that common. These aren't used that much. They're sometimes used in the locative, and we'll learn about. We'll go over those when we have an example. But like if you were doing something, I won't mess this up too much. Anyway, they can be used in the locative to have a whole totally separate clause that is while something was happening. So if you saw this while there was a war going on, right, then the while a war was going on would be in the locative. And I think it uses the present participle, but it's in the locative sense. So that would be a subclause. And you'll see that. You'll have a thing that's going on here before the verb. We'll see that. That's common enough. Might even be coming up.
But then it wouldn't have the ending "oh," right? It's in the locative.
Right.
Okay.
Would be a subclause. So here it's him who was coming, but if something else was going on at the same time, you'd put a whole subclause here. It could be a whole sentence. It could be a whole story. They don't really do that, but it would be a whole sentence. Like while this man was doing all those things, the Buddha was preaching in Savatthi, in Jetavana. You could say something like that. You'll see. We'll come across them. Okay, so Garu is your homework. Sorry about the mix-up.
Thank you, Bhante. Is that the right way to use it, Bhante?
Yeah, when you're talking to someone, you can use it. Bhante. Have a good week, everyone. Sadhu.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Bhante.
Sadhu.
Sadhu.